Welcome to the Sussex Disability Sports Network webinar, Adapting to the Here, Now and Tomorrow. So this was a request from some network members saying that they were really keen to understand how others had been adapting their sessions. And also we had a few conversations around kind of face-to-face and online delivery, and whether that's something that could continue taking place after lockdown, and how it kind of maybe engaged a different audience. So we were really keen to explore that and think about the kind of benefits and the challenges. So I'm really grateful that Bob is going to give a bit of an example of what they've done in terms of adapting sessions. So moving some of their sessions that they were obviously having to were delivering inside to outside, and I think swimming to outside, which I'm really interested to hear how a swimming session has been adapted. And then we've got Phil from Albion in the Community, who's just going to give a bit of an example of what they've been doing in terms of online delivery and that kind of blended model, a bit of face-to-face and online, and just then really opening it up to the other members to provide their feedback and just discuss really as an open forum. So without further ado, Bob, do you want to kick us off? That'd be great.
So hello everybody. I don't know if you all know, but Out There are a health and social care service part of Dimensions UK. We're tasked with running a community-based preventative service for people with learning disabilities, and pre-COVID we were catering for about between 250 and 300 people a week, accessing services in Crawley, Horsham, Burgess Hill, Worthing, Bognor and Chichester, and a mixture of daytime and evening and weekend provision. So like everybody else in March, when the dreaded lurgy came into sight, we all had to shut our doors. Being a community-based service, you know, we definitely couldn't go out and operate out of gyms and leisure centres, which is what we normally do. So we reverted, like most people did, to a virtual service and engaged people in the 2.6 challenge, which took the place of the marathon this year. We came up with a Summer Olympics challenge. We came up with leisure options as well. So it's very much a mixed bag, just to keep people engaged socially and also physically as much as we possibly could. When we got the green light to reopen, which was obviously July, I think the first lockdown finished, we're part of Dimensions, so we had to run all our risk assessments past them. But to cut a long story short, we identified the 12th of August as a potential start date. So we know that we couldn't go out and provide the same sessions that we had in the past. We had to very much adapt them on the spot. So we identified Crawley and Chichester as our what we termed trial sessions that would be run outdoors to obviously negate the risk of being indoors with groups, and obviously look at everything that goes with that. So for the Crawley group, we usually run a football training session in the afternoon. We couldn't use our usual pitches, the 3G pitches in Crawley, because they come under Freedom Leisure, or did at the time. We couldn't hire them, so we decided to use Southgate Park, which is a public park. And we identified Oaklands as a venue, Oaklands Park in Chichester as a venue for that group, because we couldn't use the Westgate Centre. So we had to think of activities or adapt the activities we got in place that would limit the interaction, physical interaction with people, cut down the amount of touching equipment, everything that, you know, we usually take for granted had to be seriously looked at. So basically we started our football sessions up again, but breaking the guys down into groups of 6, very much skills and fitness work, no actual football played at the time. No tackling. It was all very much about, as I say, the skills and the fitness side of it, and they were very keen they embraced it straight away, I'm glad to say. At Oaklands Park, yet again, we broke the group down into about 6, 2 groups of 6. We had 12 people attending. I run one that was like a HIIT type class, and I had a personal trainer doing another one, which was about flexibility and coordination, and it was very much based on not touching equipment, but the fitness side, but getting them engaged you know, letting them come up with ideas and make them feel that it was part of their sessions. You know, that it was their choice. I'm glad to say that our numbers were the same as they were pre-COVID. We expected people to come back, but you know, a bit at a time. We expected there to be a bit of fear, a bit of uncertainty, but no, they did. They came back in the same numbers, which, you know, showed that they really needed it. So going back to where we were, so as we said, we identified locations, we visited locations and did risk assessments. You know, looked at, you know, public, you know, how many, is it going to be too congested there? What's the parking like? Are there toilets on site? Drawing our risk assessments up around that. Sorry, I haven't got my teeth in this morning. Looking at the maximum number of people we could engage in these sessions as per the government guidelines. Identified a number of staff, because obviously we realised that we probably needed a floating member of staff to keep the eye on social distancing, and, you know, just giving people general reminders. What, when, where and how communication as to, you know, what we're doing, when it's going to take place, where, and what things we've put in place to keep people safe. From there, we drew up our own health and safety guidelines. So when people turned up to the sessions, we took their temperatures. We recorded the temperatures on our register that we usually use to record people coming along, but we also used that as a track and trace system. We were quite clear with our communications as to how the sessions would run, and sent them out in easy read format. We spoke to everybody on the phone before the session just to update them on what we were doing and why. Nobody came back with any problems about this. Obviously with GDPR now the way it is, we had to be very careful with that. So as I say, temperature taken on arrival, track and trace system that we can follow through, plenty of hand gel available for us and the guys. But I've got to say, most of them turned up with their own masks and gel anyway. We had gloves, aprons and masks with us in case we did have to apply any first aid, which I'm glad to say we didn't. What we put in place, if there was any minor first aid incidents, that the guys could treat themselves. So if it's a cut or a scrape, you know, obviously just support them to access the kit, take some stuff out, wipe the wound down, whatever, apply a dressing. We reacquainted ourselves with the CPR guidelines because we realised they'd changed in respect of not giving resuscitation breaths. And, you know, I made sure that all of my team went back and revisited the training, just so that we all, you know, singing from the same hymn sheet. So to say, the activities ensured that as much as we possibly could, that social distancing was observed and there was minimal equipment. And I've got to say, it went very well. People adapted quickly. On the whole, they policed themselves. So if they saw somebody doing something they think they shouldn't, they would say, you know, you're not supposed to be doing that. And they were very on the ball. As soon as we could get back into our usual locations, we did. So we were back in the Westgate Centre for a few weeks. We were back at K2, our football pitches there. Obviously, lockdown 2 came into force, so we went back to where we were again. We started encouraging people to use our virtual service. Glad to say that things opened up again yesterday, so we started rolling our sessions out at the Westgate Centre yesterday, and we're at Bognor today, so that's good. As for your question about the swimming, Gemma, the only time we did that really was when it was pouring with rain. We couldn't adapt that, but we were quite clear with people, you know, that this is what we can provide. We'd love you to take part in that, but give them the choice. You know, we were limited in what we could do, but you know, we were out doing something when a lot of services unfortunately couldn't operate. So that's basically where we are at the moment. I'm hoping that we can, you know, obviously COVID, you know, if we're being as COVID safe as possible and we don't get another lockdown, I'm hoping we can expand on the program and we can start reopening some of the other services up that we offer. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say we're back at the Bewbush Leisure Centre as well now, working on a transition program in Manor Green College. So that's great, and they're keen to be coming along. So that's basically where we are at the moment and what the plan is for the future.
So kind of as a summary from that, you didn't find that having to adapt to a different sport or doing different types of, you know, exercise rather than playing football turned away your participants? If anything, you allowed them to have more ownership over some of the provision?
Very much so. We were realistic in what we could offer, but we said, this is your session. Give us some ideas. If we can do it, we would consider it and try to do it. If we can't, then we'll be honest with you, considering the safety aspects of it. And everybody was happy with that.
That's really great, because we know that some individuals might be quite specific about wanting to do a specific sport.
Yeah.
That's how they're engaged in the session. So that's really positive that they were still coming to the sessions.
Yeah, very much so. As I said, we didn't expect the numbers to, be anywhere near what the levels of pre. The first session we rolled up, we had a couple of extras turn up. Fortunately, we had the staff there that could cater for it. We've had to adapt the service in respect that in the past we would have gone to the Westgate Centre with 2 members of staff and done a gym and swim session, and usually have around about 15, 16 people turn up. But obviously now we're adhering, we have to adhere to the booking system. So now we do 2 gym sessions of 4 people and 2 staff on a Wednesday. And they're popular. I could accommodate more people want to come, but we just can't do it at the moment.
Wow, that shows the demand's there, isn't it?
It's definitely there, definitely there.
Did anyone have any specific questions they'd like to ask Bob, or would like to kind of provide anything around what they've been doing to adapt sessions? Liz, yeah.
Hello, Liz.
We've been doing quite similar things for the sounds of it. Interesting to hear that you haven't had too many problems with getting people back in.
No.
That has been one of our challenges around, obviously, fears and anxieties. Obviously, we work with quite a few vulnerable people who may have been shielding for lockdowns or just in a vulnerable group. So we are finding it a bit of a challenge to get people back into group, or albeit smaller group activities than we have done in the past. But we have equally been running Zoom programs and trial community sessions as well.
Yeah, it takes a while. I mean, we're quite lucky, I think, because a lot of the people that access these 2 sessions, and if I'm totally honest with you, we did focus on these 2 sessions because we know that most of the people are very independent and, are able to make their own decisions, and were probably able to rationalise some of their fears, or at least have support with that. We did redeploy 2 of our staff to work in 2 of our homes while this was going on, to keep those links up, because some of the guys that live in those homes use our service anyway. So they were asking regular questions about when can we get out again. Ian and Emma were taking them out for walks and doing things that they could do, like a bit of badminton in the garden and stuff like that, just to keep them ticking over. But as soon as we could get out again, they were just champing at the bit to do it. As I say, we've had to, because of the booking systems and everything, we've had to limit the numbers, but we could, the needs there and people want to come if we had the spaces to do it.
That's great.
I've been looking at what stuff you're doing online. It looks good.
Yeah, we've been trying to do a range of activities. The Zoom sessions have been going really well. As I say, the challenge for us has just been getting people back now. There still seems to be a lot of anxiety about returning to some, not all, but some of our face-to-face activity. I think transport's one of our issues there, which is just for us, but
that's always an issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
I managed to turn everybody off cricket in the sessions I ran, didn't I, Liz?
Well done, Arup.
We went from 4 to 0. I won't take it personally.
No, we're going to try again.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, transport. Yeah, that's a tricky situation, isn't it? If individuals need specific transport to get somewhere, then that's going to put a barrier.
It's always an issue,
and I guess that's in a way maybe a nice segue into that blended model, talking about having that face-to-face, which is really important, you know, to try and get those individuals back to that face-to-face and socialising. But actually, can this online delivery also help, you know, continue to help and engage? And as we move out, hopefully, injections come in, hopefully we'll be, we'll all have that. But it does perhaps give us an opportunity to continue to support individuals who might struggle to get somewhere for transport. Sorry,
Gemma, can I just ask a quick question to Bob?
Sure.
It's just my guys haven't been coached for 9 months now. So, and one thing you mentioned, which just raised an alarm with me, was CPR and first aid refreshers. So, did you just go to an online? Where did you get that, or did you bring somebody in and do it? Or
no, but we're quite lucky, Arup, as being a health and social care, you know, provider. We've got to do our mandatory training anyway, so it's very in your face on a weekly basis. So, I recently, in the last couple of years, we managed to get funding to get a defibrillator put on our site in Ifield. So I get the regular updates from the British Heart Foundation on changes, and it was just one that popped up several months ago about changes to CPR. You know, obviously with the withdrawal of the resuscitation breaths and just the compression. So that rung alarm bells with me, because, you know, it was fine me getting emails, but there were other people getting these. So I cascaded that down through our organisation. Unfortunately, they picked up on it, and, you know, a general communication went out after checking, you know, the guidelines with British Heart Foundation, who do our training. But the first aid stuff, obviously, you know, we're all trained in first aid on a yearly basis. We do our refreshers, and it was just us thinking, how do we amend this? You know, obviously, if somebody has an accident now, and, you know, we've got to get up close and personal whilst an ambulance is coming, what do we need to consider? So it is the full PPE, you know, obviously masks, gloves, aprons, having them there. I'm glad to say, touch wood, that we haven't had to use them. But also just getting the guys' heads around, if they do have a knock or a cut that's minor, you know, that the kit's there, that they, you know, we would put the stuff on the table for them to use, using gloves and masks and everything, and they can treat themselves as appropriate. And then obviously, if we needed to pass communication on to any carers or family members, we would do that after the session.
Bob, would you be happy to forward that email from the British Heart Foundation?
Yeah, I'll have to dig back for it, but yeah, I've got a problem with that.
Yeah, because then
let me make a note of that.
Yeah, in the notes. Because that'd probably be useful for quite a lot of delivery partners, just as a reminder. Because, like you say, unless you get that sort of correspondence, it might not be something that triggers to think about. So.
And I've got to say, it didn't come down through our own organisation. Nobody had picked
it
up.
Hasn't come through mine. That's why I'm like,
this is
surely somebody's picked this up.
But yeah, at least we did highlight it and managed to get it, you know, as part of our action plan.
Yeah, that's great. Good point to raise, Arup. Thank you. So, is there any more questions? Otherwise, we'll just move on to. So Phil, are you happy to just give us a bit of an overview of what you guys have been up to? That'd be great.
Yeah, no problem at all. So good morning, everyone. So I'm Phil. Obviously, I oversee lots of different disability football sessions across Sussex. We work with around 33 sessions across 2 weeks, which averages about 400 to 450 players attending them sessions. So stopping them sessions was horrible, to be honest. And we started off lockdown with introducing Zoom, which I think many of us have got to used with now. So for the first lockdown, I turned into like a really, really, really bad Joe Wicks. So I was delivering every single week on a Tuesday night, on a Saturday morning, to lots and lots of our disability participants. I think the most we had on one morning was about 60 players all attended and copied my moves on a Saturday morning, which was good fun. Obviously tried to keep up a warm up, main activity, and cool down as well. Some people doing it in their kitchen, some people doing it outside, some people doing it in their front room, you name it. We had them doing it everywhere they could, to be honest. So that was the first thing we did for LITC, so getting the online sessions. We also started a social wellbeing catch up on a Wednesday. I think that's probably been the best thing we have done, to be honest. So we've really created a lovely social group there. So 15, 20 come on every Wednesday. It's been so random. It's been so amazing. We've got to know players. We know what they're studying at college. We know what they want to be when they're older. We did a drawing competition. We've done quizzes. One's a DJ and plays music every time. We sing, we dance. We do whatever we can to kind of have a real good time, get them to switch off, not talk about COVID, not worry about COVID. And we do football quizzes, whatever we can, just to get them to have some fun. And it's been great for coaches as well, community coaches, to come on board in that and see players who they haven't seen for a while to link up to. We've done a quiz night. So we had a quiz night recently, actually, where we had about 40, 50 players come online with their families too, which was really nice. One of our coaches dressed up and did like funny outfits and stuff. So it was really good fun. We also done like the YouTube football challenges. So I'm probably going to set all of us a few challenges today. So a few step over challenges, a few toe tap challenges, for examples. But there's been like YouTube videos where people can log on and access 10, 12-minute videos of us doing physical activity, which has been great. The other side of that, obviously, during lockdown, there's been lots of vulnerable participants across the 400-500 players we work with. So I actually text every single player during this time, and that was a really, really good idea of who's struggling and who's actually doing all right. So some players I thought might be struggling, they're absolutely fine, and some players I thought would be fine are actually really struggling and could do with a bit more support. Emailing players, we send out a weekly email for everything we've got going on in terms of online sessions, the Zoom, the meetings, the quizzes, whatever we've got going on, which has been really good for all players. I just mentioned the old-fashioned way. I made loads and loads of phone calls as well. So players who didn't actually get back to me, who I was worried about a text, I just phoned them up, and that could turn into a 2-minute phone call or a half an hour phone call, and they've been brilliant. And I've got to learn about loads and loads of our players, to be honest. Players who I don't really know that well, so I haven't seen them that much. I now know them, and they're kind of, from that, they're accessing more of our Zoom sessions and getting involved and feeling part of AITC. Our Facebook group, so we have about, I think it's 350, 400 of them all on a Facebook page as well. So we put our things on there. So yesterday, from the Wellbeing Zoom meeting, for example, they did a drawing competition. So we said the winner of the competition, then everyone gets to see that. There's loads and loads of like updates on our Facebook pages. Also, Facebook Messenger has been really, really, really good, just to check on people, see how they're doing. Yes, it's been really, really good. But like I say, the phone calls and the text messages have been really good for vulnerable participants. What does it look like beyond lockdown? I think there's going to be so many benefits, and writing them all down, there's so many. So I thought I'd focus just on a few. I thought for us to keeping online sessions going, so the benefits of keeping online sessions going. I just mention people who do feel anxious or nervous or scared to come back to session. It makes them still feel part of AITC. It makes them feel, which is really, really important. It makes them look forward to them sessions, makes them come online, say hello to their friends, say hello to their coaches, familiar faces. And it takes away that actually they're a bit too nervous to come to a session this weekend or in general, but they can still access them session. I mentioned social interaction, so loneliness. So people being at home on their own. The Wednesday wellbeing chat has been really good for that, but we do it on the physical activity sessions. We meet 15 minutes before, so people come online, I'll just see how their day is. We talk about breakfast, we talk about food, we talk about whatever really. Has been great. I've also seen during this time, which has been amazing for me, is players who we haven't seen at sessions for a long time. So one of our players actually is ill at the moment, so couldn't attend. He's got terminal cancer. He couldn't attend any of our sessions, but through the Zoom, he's actually been attending at least once, twice a week, every week. So he can't actually come to a session, and that's the same for some of our players who with support workers. So they've not actually been able to attend sessions for a year or two, but we've actually seen them now, and they've come back and been a part of AITC, which has been great. Also, the other side, obviously, of players not wanting to come to sessions is lots of our players will just want to maintain fitness and maintain their weight too. That's been a big thing. Players, I assume everyone's put on weight, but actually at the same time, people have lost weight. So it's been very different in terms of our players. So we've been doing some strength exercises in our Zoom sessions. We've also had our nutritionist from AITT come and do like chats with them about not drinking 10 cans of Red Bull before a session, and all that sort of thing. So obviously the general benefits of getting back to sessions has been absolutely incredible, not just for players, but for coaches too, to see their players on a weekly basis. I wrote something down, I just said like 3 words. I just wrote happiness, joy and fun. That's all I can explain our sessions have been. Obviously the protocols we put in place have been, been a challenges and thing, but getting back out there, not worrying about in terms of outcomes, what they must learn, just getting back out there and just playing. I call it the mental well-being switch. When you go and play sport activity, all of us have experienced it. When you play football and activity, all you think about during that time is that sport. So it's been great for players to come, not talk about COVID, not think about COVID, obviously when they first come and do the protocols, and really switch off and enjoy that time. I also obviously just mentioned getting out of the house. A lot of our players, I didn't realise when we first started our sessions, players would come and they'd be like, I haven't been out of the house for 6 months. And and the first time they had was to one of our sessions, and I was like, that's incredible, like it's absolutely amazing. But alongside all the obviously them benefits, there's going to be so many challenges too. So I'll just mention online. So just maintaining numbers and participants is it's going to be a challenge. New fresh ideas, new challenges, coming up with new things every single week because it's been going on so long now. And also when we go back to sessions, it's having that time and focus to realise actually it'll probably be good to reflect on the benefits and things I talked about today, actually, to make sure that's just as important as our face-to-face sessions. The challenges of delivery, I'll just mention the COVID protocols. Bob mentioned earlier that obviously we're doing similar to what they're doing, temperature checks, the gels, self-declaration forms, the cleaning of equipment. It's all for coaches to understand them and follow the rules too. So that can be a challenge. I also mentioned the no high fives. I know that's a real funny thing, but when players come, you kind of high five, like celebration. It's the high 10, even the high tens if they do a good goal. Do you know what I mean? It's the non-contact for coaches to understand that they can't do the handshakes when they first get there. All little things like that really do impact and challenge our session. And the other thing I just mentioned was players who don't want to play matches. It's how you make them feel included, where at sessions they are coming and we are playing matches, we are playing games within there. So if they don't want to play a match, how do we still make them included? So recently I made one of the players a referee, and he was much happier with that. So he just stood on the side being a referee, or actually went in goal. Another player went in goal. So just dealing with them situations as they come, but there's going to be so much learning along the way, especially as more. I don't know. I think this second lockdown, as players come back, they might be more anxious. I don't know. It's going to be interesting the next kind of probably 3 to 4 weeks actually till Christmas time to see if there's any differences. But if anyone does have any tips, advice, or ideas of how we can improve, or what you guys have been doing and we could do as well, or if we could link up and stuff, please do let us know. But that's it from me.
Brilliant, thanks Phil. No, that's really, really interesting. I think it gives you a good overview of that engagement and how powerful having that kind of online provision has also been. And like you said, it can't take away the face-to-face and the happiness and the joy that you get from being at a physical session, but it sounds like you've definitely provided a service to a lot of individuals to help them get through this period. So it's not just been about sport and physical activity, it's been about maybe a lifeline for some individuals. So yeah, fantastic effort. Does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask Phil?
No harder ones, please.
I haven't got a question as such, but I just like. Sorry, can you hear me? I've my headset up. Not a question as such. I think I just want to echo what Phil says about the benefits for the coaches and staff, because I know for myself, being stuck behind a desk most of the time now, which I don't enjoy. Having a chance to actually go out and interact with the guys and do sessions and going back to what it's all about, the grassroots stuff for me has been very beneficial, and I think all my staff team feel the same. So yeah, totally get that.
With you on that one, Bob.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, Paul. Yeah, very important.
Yeah, definitely. During lockdown, I did a quiz every single week for the community coaches working in disability. We also did like things on WhatsApp groups, like who's the better player, 1 or 2, and that just took people's mind off things and had little debates and arguments and stuff, which was quite nice.
Say a nice little argument start.
Yeah, just threw some things out there.
Yeah, great.
Can I ask you a quick question around kind of next steps? Obviously, you've kind of said that it will be a really good thing to continue to do the kind of the online stuff. So where there's individuals with anxiety or don't feel maybe comfortable quite coming to sessions yet, have you actually surveyed any of your participants around finding out how they've enjoyed kind of the online stuff and kind of coming out of lockdown, if they will come back to sessions or if they would prefer an online or if they would be happy to have a mix?
Yeah, so we sent out during the weekly email, we send out lots of different surveys all the time where people can answer. And we sent out a survey recently saying, how can we help you during lockdown? I think that was a really nice open-ended question where people could just get back to us with any sort of ideas. I'm just trying to think in terms of, Paul, is there anything else you can think of in terms of?
No, you could go, mate, you're doing well.
I'm just trying to think. Gemma, ask the question again. I'll see if I can.
I guess it's it's that continual communication, isn't it? And it's finding out the needs of the individuals and what suits them. I guess we're always keen to understand that and share that kind of widely. Yeah. So if there's any insight like that you're able to share, that'd be really.
When we did start sessions again, I was really surprised of how many players came back. I think we had over 200 players coming back, and then we had 30, 40 still online. So we had a real high numbers of coming back, and then we identified using a vulnerable participant spread list who's not coming back and contacting them people during that time, and which was really nice. All the time, like I say, we're doing surveys to see how we can support people, but that might be something to add in long term to see if they are too anxious or nervous, what we can continue to do to support them guys.
And from sorry, Paul, go on.
Sorry, all I was going to say, what I would add is that I think generally in our experiences, we don't get significant responses from surveys. We'll get, even the one that Phil mentioned recently, we had probably 15, 20 responses to it, which is great, but for such an open-ended question, it wasn't brilliant. But actually what we find is we're in constant communication with a lot of our participants, and we get stuff through that kind of informal, whether that's seeing people at sessions or whatever it might be. That's where we get that quality information. And I think our challenge, and it's always been our challenge long term, is how do we capture that, and put it into a spreadsheet and go, here's the data. But everything that Phil's been talking about, the social sessions, the physical activity, that was all kind of born out of us going, right, what do we think we can do, and then progressing that onto what we can do. Sorry, my cat's being sick in the background, which is really nice. It's just all right.
Mine's doing something crazy again.
But yeah, it was those informal conversations that allowed us to then go, right, this is what we're going to do and how.
Yeah. So a question for you then, moving forward, capacity-wise, of being able to continue to do that, is that something that the organisation is going to be able to prioritise? Do you think you're going to have that kind of capacity to continue that level of engagement?
Yes, definitely. I'd hope so anyway. I'll say yes, definitely. I'd hope so. But just with more during the, obviously lockdown, it was me and Paul, and there's 8 members of full-time staff in our team, so we can use our team as best as possible. Obviously, if we need to, we can use community coaches and pay them for that time to use the online delivery, because it is so important. Even the well-being thing on Wednesday, if we can't do it, one of the coaches will do it for us, and they've come into them sessions and been part of them too, which has been really helped. So definitely.
Great. I did write something.
Just to make a quick point, Gemma, on that sort of monitoring, evaluating anxiety, Club Matters released a report on participant feelings about returning, and one of the things they spoke about was continuing to monitor that. And I think that approach, Paul, obviously the surveys issue, but that mixture of that sort of quantitative and qualitative data that you can get is really good. And it's just, having that mix, it's not easy to do. It's always difficult to capture, but that shows impact. It shows that you're listening and that you're monitoring that and then adapting your services. So that's really good to hear. And then I just more of a question for everyone really. We talked about sort of workforce training and getting your coaches up to speed with all the protocols and etc. And I just wondered if you'd accessed any training around that. You know, I know that SimSpa run their Reactivate training, which is specifically around returning to activity over COVID. So it's more of just an open question to everyone really, if anyone's accessed what they've accessed or if they need support in that area.
So we asked all returning staff and coaches to do that yeah, that one. And we also got them to do a psychological first aid online course as well. That was kind of quite COVID specific. So we asked all staff to do that on return. Since then, it's been a lot more kind of informal stuff. We did an all staff briefing when staff were coming back in and went through our protocols and stuff with them. So, but that was much more aligned to, you know, this is what we need to do at sessions and things like that, rather than a more generic thing.
Yeah, oh, excellent. Well, would you be able to share the first aid one you mentioned?
Yeah, I'll dig out and send it to you now.
Yeah, top man, thanks. Anyone else?
Sorry, can you just talk me about what the SimSpa stuff is?
SimSpa, Chartered Institute for Sport and Physical Activity, they designed online free training. I think it's about 3 hours, and it's all around sort of increasing coaches' confidence and competence to return with COVID protocols, etc. And then after completing it, you get like a COVID certificate, which obviously you can then use to sort of show your participants that you've trained up your staff and sort of reassure them about returning. But what I'll do is I'll give Devon's got the details, but she'll share that. We'll share that with everyone. So if you haven't accessed it, it's definitely worth an afternoon's CPD for sure.
Great, fantastic, thank you.
Nick, I think we accessed some of the tools that Sport had put up online. There's been so many communications going out at the moment. I'd have a problem telling you what it specifically was, but we did find it useful to run it alongside our plan, just to see where we matched up, if there's anything we missed, or if there's anything they've missed, you know, from our perspective. So yeah, that was useful.
Okay.
Was that Sported, did you say, Bob?
Yeah, Sported information, but you know, there's quite a lot of varied links on there.
Yeah.
So I'd be lying if I could point you directly to what it was.
Nick, I've just posted that in the chat, but I'll email it to you as well.
Oh, lovely. Thanks, Paul. I'll do the same with the SimSpa Reactivate one sec.
One of the biggest challenges that I've found from a school perspective is not necessarily the participants being anxious too much about returning to physical activity, but parents. Has anyone had any sort of situations similar to that where, you know, parents want to see things, you know, in place where their child's going to be safe or they feel it's safe, and often I think physical activity in sport and PE has kind of been put on a bit more of a lower priority than other learning, especially in an education setting, and how anybody's dealt with that would be really useful for me.
Yeah, I think when I mentioned about the anxiety at the beginning, it probably is more from the parents and the carers rather than the participants themselves. We did quite a few videos, so walking around our buildings and outside areas showing what we had set up with one-way systems, hand sanitizer stations and that sort of thing, and what the rooms would look like. They obviously look quite different. So previously we'd had about 15 people crammed into a space. There were now sort of 6 individual tables. So that helped a bit, I think, to reassure people that it was very different from, you know, March time.
We developed like easy read protocols, but we designed them for parents and players, because actually, you know, by the time you've written, we're on version 9, I think, of our COVID delivery risk assessment. So by the time you've read it and, you know, looked at that information like 20 times, it just blows your mind. So when we first developed our protocols for parents and things like that to send out, we just found it was quite complicated, and there was, you know, there's so much information out there at the moment, you can tie yourself in knots with it. So actually we found doing an easy read version was actually really well received by everyone.
I think that's the way forward. I think our risk assessments are so in depth because they have to be. It just goes way over a lot of parents and carers' heads. So having something more concise.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, they've been well received, and we've had positive feedback around it, and we've seen people have understood them in terms of arrival at session and things like that. So
Brilliant.
Paul, is that something you can share, or is that an internal?
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
That'd be great. Thank you.
If anyone does actually thinking about parents and carers, if anyone does actually have any advice on that, it'd be really good. I deal with quite a few parents, and they say to me, "Right, they're not coming back," and it's totally no, they're not coming back, and I don't have to push them and say, "Do you want to think about it?" or allow them to make that decision, because I know it'd be beneficial for one person I'm thinking in particular, but I know there's probably a lot more out there. So if anyone's got advice of how to, obviously the easy read's great, but having a conversation with someone saying that's fine, you've made that decision, but the protocols are in place. I don't know what is the advice in terms of saying to parents and players to get people back involved, I suppose.
Faye, I know you're there, and I'm not meaning to pick on you. I was just wondering, from a national point of view, do you know if there's any information out there around that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not aware of any kind of advice that is out there. We haven't got any, I guess, from a Royal MENCAP point of view. Kind of we just follow advice from kind of Sport England, really. So yeah, it's a hard one, really, because it's trying to persuade people to come and convince, just have all your safety protocols in place. But it's tough if they are anxious, or if their parents, carers aren't willing to take them to sessions just due to the risk. But yeah, I'm not aware of any advice or guidance that is out there.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fine. Thank you. I just thought, I'd ask just in case.
No, that's fine.
Come out. But,
Gemma.
Yeah.
Sorry to butt in. Just thinking. This was pre-COVID, something we've always done. That we've always offered like a taster session, so somebody can come and look, try, just watch if they wanted to get used to the environment. So I'm just wondering, for people, we work with 16 upwards, and I know that working with children is a totally different ball game. But just wondering if some of the parents could be encouraged to just, bring their son, daughter along, watch from a distance, just to see what's in place, to get a feel for what's actually going on, and sort of build their confidence up from there. I don't know if that's worth considering or offering.
How big are your sessions, Phil? Like, in terms of, are they sort of, how many participants do you tend to get?
It's a real mix, actually. So on a Tuesday night in Eastbourne, I could have 35 players.
Wow.
So obviously, but they could go. They're going into two groups when they're there. They're going into two groups. It could, like you say, it could be part of it. But then at other sessions, it could be 5, 6. It could be, for our lower sessions, probably 3, and our higher session could be up to 20 in terms of training altogether. But for example, we would hire the whole pitch, and they've like 3 different teams training at once. So you could have 50, 60 players training on the same pitch. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In their own groups, sort of thing.
Because this wasn't even from a sporting perspective, but one of the things that our head put in place was to ease the anxiety of even children coming into school at all, was just splitting class sizes down into small 4-people bubbles. And that was something that really made a difference in terms of parents' confidence in
that's true.
Exposure. So, I mean, maybe even making the group sizes even smaller. So
I think the difficult thing with that is sometimes if you cancel a booking, someone else takes that booking, so we'll have external people there. So if we've got the whole Astro, we're kind of in charge of all the protocols. Do you see what I mean? Where we used to do it, where you used to book half a pitch. If you only book half, there's someone on the other half, and you're not in. So we had it in Worthing recently, where there was 40, 50 kids on the other half, which is 40, 50 parents, 40, 50 cars, and it caused a lot of stress there. One gate in, one gate out, which caused real stress on the day, actually. Lots of people just went home and all that sort of thing. So I had to phone the venue, ask them to put a different gate in, make sure there's cones down the line, all put that things in place. But that's a really good idea actually, and something probably I need to think about more for all of our sessions, definitely.
That's tricky, isn't it?
And I mean, that's, yeah, again, a good point raised around the facilities, and that was something that came up in our last webinar, the inclusive response and how facilities are responding, and especially around kind of inclusivity, because at the moment, you know, priority is income generation, and it's not necessarily around community provision. So yeah, I think there's going to be an ongoing issue, I suppose, around facilities and how they ensure that they are engaging with the wider community. But I think, you know, what you said, Phil, going back to them and saying, can you put in an extra gate, and can you make sure that they're considering you know, influencing them to think about what they're doing, and that's the only way that we can continue to ensure that they are listening and they're responding. Otherwise, yeah, you might find that a lot of parents, like you say, then won't want to bring their children at all, and then you lose those individuals from participating. So yeah, that's a tricky one.
I can't remember who said it, but I really like the idea of having almost videos to show some of your protocols that you might, just to add to that reassurance, because I think you're looking at, it's easy to put, like you say, you can put a risk assessment or some bolded points, but a lot of people prefer to just look at a video and feel a lot more comfortable after seeing that. So yeah, and I guess just reassuring them and continuing to champion the benefits of returning and how that, you know, outweighs not returning, I guess.
Just a couple of kind of comments on that. One, absolutely, we've been looking at trying to do those for ages. We just haven't had the resource to do it. But two, we also had a really interesting experience where we shared on Facebook a picture. It just happened to be of myself at a session, taking a kid's temperature with the handheld thermometers or guns, depends who you are. And we obviously just posted that, and part of it was kind of a reassurance that this is what we're doing. There was detail underneath about, you know, what our protocols are and stuff like that. And we got absolutely hammered. I think we had nearly 150 comments. It just got picked up, and we ended up having to take the post down because there was a huge amount of negativity on there, accusing us of pointing guns at kids' heads, frying their brains with thermometers, like literally you name it, it was all on there. And we sort of resisted, and I'm saying to our media team, no, you've got to take that down. And it took a while, but eventually we had to take it down. So, you know, I think that there is, there's a note of caution in there as well, I think, about how and where you're publicising that type of stuff, because it is really important messages. But equally, there's a big community out there that will jump on anything like that and see it in a real negative light. It was fun that day.
It wasn't just because you were in the picture.
Yeah, basically.
No, it's a really interesting point. I was going to ask Liz, you know, you said about the walkthroughs. Did you video those as well, or were they just physical walkthroughs in the centre?
They were just from the moment someone arrived at our day service, it was taking them through the front door of where they'd be greeted and taking them through, showing them sort of the one-way systems into the room that they'd be in, and just trying to show, yeah, how it was different, really. We got it, I believe a lot of schools have been doing it. I certainly had one from my son's school. It just showed how, you know, life at school will be a bit different, that they'll be in their bubbles and lunch times will be different. So we sort of copied that concept that we'd seen from primary schools, and yeah, just tried to sort of do our own, a bit amateurish probably, but we tried to take everyone on a guided tour.
That's great. No, that's brilliant. Well, I think unless there's any more kind of questions, I think that kind of concludes the session and a good discussion. I'm sure we could carry on talking for ages, and I'm sure there's loads more examples, but you know, the network is here to obviously discuss. So if anyone, you know, does go away and thinks, oh, I'd really like to ask some more questions, I'll make sure that we share the contact details of everyone on the call today, so you can touch base if you'd like to speak to someone individually. So as we come to the end, I would like to say a big thank you for everyone's contributions, and especially to Bob and Phil for providing your examples. For those staying on, we will now hear from Faye Dixie from the Royal MenCap Society, who will be talking about the Round the World Challenge coming to Sussex in January. So for those of you who are listening to this webinar post-event, there will be a separate link to the recording talking about the Round the World Challenge and the Participant Hub. So please head to the Sussex Disability Sport Network page on our website or our YouTube channel to listen to that recording.